Yay! We have an intro now. Haha.
It was good.
Let's
It looked
go.
Welcome,
good.
everybody. Like, we're real now. It's a real show. Welcome, everybody, to another Thursday evening Carnivore Mastermind. I'm excited, as usual, to be sitting down with my panel of awesome carnivores and all of you in the chat tonight. And of course, if you're watching in Futureland in the replay, welcome as well. We're going to be doing just kind of a chill, open topic Q&A night. I thought about throwing one of these in every once in a while just because a lot of times I love doing the topics and talking about, specific things, but sometimes it takes us a long time to get to comments or questions. And so maybe once a month or once every couple months or something, we'll sprinkle one of these more open formats in, so we can all just kind of chat about whatever's on our minds and whatever you guys are thinking about in on the other side of the screen here. So thanks everybody for being here. I guess well, we did have a poll this week, so I will bring that up and kind of I was kind of curious just to know in general how confident everyone feels in kind of their knowledge base around carnivore. I know, like, when I started this diet, it was a very sort of intuitive thing, process of elimination, but I'd been studying and reading books and watching videos and digging in forums for years and years and years, pretty much related to any diet that I was on at the time. And so when I figured out carnivore was a thing, I just like, anything I can get my hands on, get my ears on, essentially, I would consume. And I love to learn in general, and I love to learn about health and nutrition. And so I'm kind of getting that feeling like that most of us are like that. And that was reflected in the poll this week, I think. So I asked you guys, how do you feel in terms of the knowledge that you've acquired about eating carnivore or a proper human diet? And then we're going to do the Ask Us Anything live Q&A this week. And so 54%, the majority, voted for pretty confident. You know enough to explain it to others. And I think that's a good marker of true understanding. And maybe that'd be something we can go around and talk about too. Like, how do you know that you really feel secure and in your understanding about this, feel confident in what you're doing? For me, I know if I can explain at least some of the concepts to other people, that usually makes me feel pretty good. But then second place was, even more confident, very confident. You've studied a lot. You're putting a lot of time and effort into understanding the information out there. And then 13% came in third place with, maybe I want to learn much more, feeling like you need to or want to learn more. And then only 2% voted for not very interested, sort of in the technicalities of it, going more by intuition, or just kind of how you feel. So I thought that was really cool. And I think that's something I love about this community as well, that it seems like people are very interested in learning and interested in understanding why this works. Because a lot of us come to this, right? And it's like, then you sort of have to reverse engineer it. It's like, well, why did this clear up my eczema? Why did this clear up my mental health issues? Why did this clear up all these things? And so it's really prompting a lot of, looking within, but also wanting to understand more about the body. So we had some comments too under this poll this week. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Girivik Gi. I know enough that I finally bitten the bullet last week to omit the small amount of plant carbs from my diet. Now I finally poo properly. Yay! I had a colonoscopy done yesterday to find out it's squeaky clean and has no signs of any issues. That's awesome. High fat, moderate protein for the win. Just need to give it over the fear of the diarrhea thing I am all of a sudden having. At least it isn't the other way around, right? So we could touch on that if anyone wants to. Hyperion Carnivore says, I like to geek out on low carb down under presentations. I love those as well. CrossFit Channel also has a lot of good info. Been soaking it all in, and paying attention to nutritional science for 15 years or more. So it's another example of just loving to learn about this stuff. True Story 923 says, I thought I knew enough, but then I learned about oxalates and realized this is a major deal that's not really addressed by enough people talking about carnivore online. I agree. Oxalates are such a are such that's a big topic. There's all kinds of things that could be symptoms of that, and I agree. I think it's getting a little more attention, but probably more people are affected by it than realize it. Rent My Dust says, I'm feeling much better about it since I upped my fat and added more electrolytes. Each person is different. Yep. So there, that intuitive side as well, adjusting things, and then you feel that confidence. And in the Middle of the Forest says, I'm definitely not a Bart K, but can keep up with the vegetarians and their nonsense. I practice on the Justine's Kitchen sugar addicts. I thought that was kind of funny. So that's a poll for the week. So I guess we'll go around the table here like usual, and just give us whatever's on your mind. What's been going on with you guys, and if you have any comments on learning about this way of eating, knowledge, different things like that, and then if anybody in the audience has questions, drop those in, and we will put them up. So we'll go over to Anna and JT.
Yeah, recently I've just been trying to kick through a weight stall. I had one for like, I'd say at least 4 months. Could have been longer, but I tried not to focus on it because I felt like I was making it worse by focusing on it, multiplying it, that's for sure. But um, recently I've done better by lowering my salt, um, upping my protein, and then lowering my fat intake as well. And that seems to have tapped back into my weight loss, which is awesome. So I just wanted to put that out there. If anybody's having a weight loss stall, that might be a little trick that you could try. You got anything fun?
I mean, I kind of had like a period just within like the last 2 weeks where I was the scale was starting to go up. And mind you, I wasn't cheating, but like I was eating a lot more than I normally do. And so I started to see the scale creep up. And so I just altered kind of how much I was eating. I do between 1 and 2 meals a day, depending on how I'm feeling. But yeah, now I did 1 meal a day today and yesterday, and I feel better. I was starting to get like bloating and too. Like I don't notice that very often, but I started to notice that too. And I don't really experience that, and the scale dropped as well. So I think it's just like you said, listening to what your body is doing, how what you're eating, how much you're eating, and then kind of going from there. I think that's what's great about the carnivore diet is it gets you in tune with your hunger and when you're full and everything. And I think that's what was lacking too prior to carnivore is when I was on diets, or even off a diet, like I would eat a ton, way more than I should have because I didn't listen to my hunger cues or they weren't as strong as they are now. So I think that's the main thing right now.
Cool.
All right. Down to Cammie.
Hello. So I feel like when I was a young mom with young kids, that if I would have been on a parenting show, I would have thought that I knew everything, that I was like, theoretical study had told me exactly how to be a marvelous parent, and I knew so much. Then my kids grew and I realized that I did not know as much as I think, and I'm really not all that. And I feel like I'm feeling that somewhat with carnivore as well. And so I'm looking to like the people that have been in this space for 15, 20 years, and they're all way over on the side of, this is hard for people, and there's a lot of variety of results from carnivore. And so and I'm experiencing that myself right now. So I'm realizing that I don't know as much as I would like to think that I know. and that I have to be really open to a wide variety of responses to changing your diet, and that carnivore isn't going to solve everything for everyone every time, but it's a huge chunk of what's super important. And the other stuff may not work at all if you don't start with the carnivore diet. Like you got to be putting in the right fuel and not putting in the wrong fuel to even start. So that's kind of where I stand on carnivore. But I myself have been a carnivore for like 15 months, and all of a sudden I'm like itching all over my body. I've never reacted to food this way. So I don't know if this is histamine, but I'm getting like sores and like scratching like crazy and like eating way too much. And so I am in the midst of like where, who can I ask this question to? Because I don't know what's going on. So it's just, we're all going to go through ups and downs, and we have to figure stuff out and experiment, and N equals 1. And we just got to roll with the punches, but keep on the path. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. John?
A lot of what Cami said. I'm also 15 months carnivore. Before that, I was 3 years ketovore, which was almost carnivore. I was doing coffee and avocados and maybe some vegetables for 3 years. And then a year before that, I was just keto, a lot of oxalates, a lot of vegetables, a lot of low carb stuff. So I learned gradually. And I kind of didn't plan it. I just would watch videos, I would learn, and then I would say, oh, I need to change that. And then I would apply it to my life and see a positive benefit. And then it became part of what I'm doing every day, even today. And they're incremental changes. So my recommendation for people is that we're all unique and individual and different, and we all have to find what works for our individual physiology. But there's some basic facts that are true for everybody, and that's that we all need protein, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. And if you can tolerate certain things like dairy, some people can tolerate some other plants or whatever. I don't shoot them down for that because I'm a carnivore now. This is what's working for me. And that is to be off of all the plant material. I had oxalate dumping, and that might be what you have, Cami. I'm not sure. But I had an issue with my eyelid. I had a kidney stone. I had to go in the emergency room. I had other issues. And after reading Sally Norton's book, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I wish I knew then as I was going through it. This is my body purging these oxalates that have accumulated over so many years. And especially when I was doing keto and adding tons more. I'm staying with carnivore. I feel my best. My weight is just right where it should be. If it goes up 3 pounds and then it goes back down. It's amazing what carnivore works with my body. And I just know that it's running more, it's attuned, like a tuned car. I can feel it better. I'm sensing all the signals that I hear we're supposed to sense. My hunger signals, I can sense them now. My satiety signals, I can sense them. They were all clouded up and muddied up before because of all the toxins and all the junk I was eating. And so now I can feel things a lot better on carnivore because my body's running on real clean fuel. Today, I just got to Austin. I didn't eat breakfast. It was after lunch, and I walked out and I found a hamburger joint. And I told them I want 2 of these hamburgers, no bun. I can't have seed oils. I have an allergy. I have to say the phrase vegetable oil and nothing else. She said no fries, all that stuff. And I had 2 wonderful patties with Swiss cheese on top, and they're just delicious. But you have to make these decisions even when you're away from your kitchen. You have to stick with it. And then I went to the store and I bought some things for the room here. I'm in the hotel room, and I bought some canned salmon. I bought some butter. I have a little refrigerator, and I'm going to stick with this. We're going out to dinner tomorrow night. I'm so excited about that. So it's just your entire life revolving around your nutrition, and try not to give in. It's easy to give in at a party, at a holiday, on a vacation, and you have to stay true to yourself because you'll just pay. You'll pay for it in the end if you give in to little things and have some of the foods that hurt you before. So, and when I talk to people, I try to meet them where they are. I can't go in and say, this is carnivore and you have to be carnivore. I have to find out where they are, and they want to learn about what keto is. Carnivore is on the keto spectrum. So, education starts at the very beginning. What is the proper human diet? What should humans be eating? And I try to take it from there and answer people's questions as best I can, because that's how they answered my questions a couple years ago. And thankfully, they met me where I was. So I want to make sure that I'm trying to meet people where they are. So when you, those of you who are listening, when you write your questions, any question, no question is a bad question. We're all learning, and we're all in a different part of our learning journey. So ask questions, find your answers, man. They're great. And when they work in your life, it's wonderful.
Excellent. Yeah, a lot of great points. I agree with all that. I think this is such a I've talked about this in a couple Sundays ago on one of my live streams about sort of the way that you dial things in, and it's like you literally have to go kind of to one side of like tracking, being analytical, getting the knowledge, and studying the videos and reading books and doing all that. And then on the flip side of that coin, you have the experiment, right? The N equals one, the intuitive side, the figuring out what your hunger cues are. You know, you're maybe, as you go through different seasons of life, that's going to change, or different situations, like, being out of the house versus being in your own kitchen, like all those things play in too. And so there's this real like yin and yang about figuring all this out. And I noticed that in my own personal journey as well. It's like there's times when I'm like obsessive about knowledge and learning and like understanding the biochemistry, which is just, it's a nightmare. It's like as soon as I think I understand, like, okay, the Randall cycle, I think I get it. Then it's like, okay, well, then zoom back out and look at that in the context of everything else that's going on in the entire body. It's like nothing happens in isolation. Nothing is just functioning in its own vacuum. You know what I mean? Like everything is just moving and feeding off of everything else. And so it can get super overwhelming sometimes. And I'm like you, Cami, I get these, times where, because I've talked about my skin problems too, and I'll have a psoriasis flare. I'll get a new spot and be like, I didn't do anything different, like, why is this happening? And I didn't have this the first time I was on this diet. And so, there's this fluctuation for me between um learning more cerebrally, and listening to lectures and podcasts and books and all this kind of stuff, and trying to figure out, okay, why is this, what might be happening, or why not? But then there's the time where you just kind of have to put that aside, I think, and like rest from that a little bit and turn inward, because that's, I think, ultimately where the real answers come from. I mean, I'm trying to remember this quote that I heard this week. Oh, maybe it'll come to me later, that put this whole idea together in a way I've never heard it before. I think I was listening to, I'm pretty sure it was Dr. Bruce Hoffman, who I've just kind of discovered. I watched his interview on Judy Cho's channel, and then Sarah Kleiner had him on a few days back, and just incredibly fascinating stuff. He does integrated medicine, so not working just with nutrition, but with, sort of these 7 levels of different levels of healing: environment, nutrition, relationships, trauma, inherited trauma, all these kinds of things. So there's all these different levels, I guess, is what I'm getting at, to go into beyond nutrition. And so while I believe that nutrition is really one of the most fundamental things we can tap into and change and work with to improve our health, like you've all said, there's times to recognize that, on the one hand, we're not all the same in terms of our health history and what we're coming from and trying to heal, but some of these other things that have happened in life can also affect our health. And so there's a lot to it. It seems like there's unlimited things to know. And that's frustrating sometimes, especially when you're dealing with things that sometimes you don't want to have. And so, um, to sum up my journey too, I find when I get too sucked into listening to what quote unquote everyone is saying to do, and I don't mean that that's wrong advice or bad advice, or the intention is anything but good, from where it's coming from, but it totally clouds my vision. It totally clouds what my body's actually asking for. And so I always have to go back to that, and I've done that a lot recently, where it's like, um, I'm just fasting more. And I know that's sort of controversial, but it's like, I just feel better that way. And that really tunes me into when I'm actually hungry too. Cause I think I've been eating too much also. And I've been getting bloated and having loose stool and weird stuff like that too from time to time. And it's like, I don't think my digestion can handle eating too much, maybe like some other people's can. And so I'm very sensitive to those kinds of things. And even on a strict carnivore diet, I still run into issues if I am not fully in tune. And so I guess that is my answer kind of to the question. So I love learning. I have like an insatiable desire to learn more, but then I have to take breaks sometimes and just tune in and kind of let it soak in, you know what I mean? So, we did have a sort of comment question here from Sandra. I thought we could throw this one up here, and maybe you've dropped some more details after this has been put up. But so you say, I'm in no man's land at the moment with carnivore, some unwelcome symptoms, and trying to experiment with what's causing them. And so I think or someone asked if you had more details. Here's one. Stopped buying this. Oh, I think you said you were drinking too much water. Having a coffee with some raw sugar. And now you're experiencing kidney and bladder problems after switching to sparkling water. So, okay, here's the other one. Stopped buying this water and went back to tap water. Just feeling run down, cold sore, first one in 20 years. Okay, so, anyone have a comment on this? I guess I feel like I would need a little more information to really know.
Just keep on trucking. You keep eating carnivore. Chalk it up to, maybe just some bad luck, if you want to say. Like, I've had weeks like that where I'm like, man, what else could go wrong? Like, and then I have weeks where I feel, incredible. Like, sometimes you're gonna get sick on carnivore. Catch a cold or something. It happens. Just keep on trucking.
You are. It may not related. It may not be related to carnivore. You may have been. You're going to get a cold, and it may not also relate. Your body is getting better. You are healing from the inside out, and sometimes these negative things have to happen. In the book I just talked about that I was reading, Sally Norton mentioned cold sores could be oxalate related. Some of these joint pains, these things are related to your body is getting rid of toxins, and so push through it. Push through it slowly. Now, if this gets very painful and they get very strong, the suggestion is to actually ingest a little bit of oxalate to slow the dumping down. If it is oxalate, it's hard to tell if it is oxalate, but when it's happening during carnivore, if you went from the standard American diet and went right into carnivore, it could probably be oxalate dumping. And we want to slow that down. You don't want a very hard dump because that could put you in the hospital. So, keep eating properly, but ease into it. I always recommend people not jump right into carnivore because your body, it's like a shock. You've been eating a certain way your whole life, and then all of a sudden, boom, you should very slowly ease into it. So I wish you well. I hope that helps.
Sorry. I agree. Yeah, it's like I said, I'm in month 10 and I'm still getting some weird things every now and then. And I've had comments from people that say that, they're a year or they're 2 years in, and then they get an oxalate, thing or something happens. And so, there again, it's we just don't know all the time what our body exactly needs to heal, how that's going to, what systems are going to be affected by that and how long that's going to take. And that is kind of the frustrating thing sometimes.
Neah, I'm also realizing it's not just oxalates. So I probably have oxalate dumping. I've also got seed oils stored in my body. I'm losing weight. So whatever my body stored in the fat at that point is now out there. I started using castor oil, which guess what that does? Draws toxins out. I take iodine, which guess what that does? Replaces toxins in your body. So I've got bromine and fluoride and chlorine floating around in my body. I've probably crashed my liver. Like, my liver's like, okay, I give up. I'm just letting the skin deal with this for a minute. So I think we have to be aware that some of the things we're doing to heal ourselves, we may be just really stressing our bodies, and we have to be maybe more careful. Like, I know that book John just read is probably saying that. And the other thing I was just realizing is that we're now comparing our carnivore weight loss results. Some of us are probably comparing that to our friends, a lot of our friends that are taking Ozempic. They are losing weight, but we can't even compare to that. They're not dumping toxins. They're just covering up the problem. And they're going to be on this super expensive drug for the rest of their lives. We're doing something fundamentally different, which is changing our bodies from the inside out. And our cells take, like, in 7 years, we'll be a whole new person. They'll be exactly the same as where they're at right now. And we'll be a brand new person. So I don't know. I'll check back with me in 6 years, guys, because who knows what will be sitting here. It'll be someone new.
Yeah, I really like that because it is. And I try to talk about this a lot to encourage myself and others, because it's like, this is the long game. You know what I mean? And we live in a world, right, where it's instant everything, instant gratification. We want the instant weight loss. We want instant, in my case, perfect skin again, and it's like, it's going to take time. I beat up my body through ignorance and through just being stupid. Ignorance, like, no one ever told me. I didn't know this information, about what food was bad and, how bad some of these things were. But then other lifestyle choices, right? Just bad news. And so why would I expect my body to just flip in a year? You know what I mean? It took time to get in here, and it'll take time to get out. So, I think I'm seeing, like, this question kind of resolved through the chat as I read further. But I did want to mention something that, here again, I don't know if this applies to you, Kenny, specifically, but I have been hearing some stuff that I think is sort of like a new excuse me, topic that's being discussed in this community. And so let me know, guys, if you've heard of this, but something called insulin suppression. I think the term was coined by the carb addiction doc, Dr. Siwas. Like, I had somebody in my comment section say, like, well, because on my insomnia video, where they're like, oh, you're not sleeping because you have insulin suppression. So basically the opposite of insulin resistance, where you are low carb for so long that your insulin's like, well, I don't ever get used, right? And so it just kind of stops. And then if you have something that does have sugar, it's like you don't pump out enough insulin. It's almost like a type 1 diabetic situation, although you're not technically a diabetic. So then your glucose might stay up like this and not come down in the correct amount of time, is how I understand it. I'll get you one in just a sec. So no clue if this is what you're dealing with, because I think you said, as we scroll down here, that you were pre-diabetic for what, 10 years? Where would it go? But it looks like you're improving, and so, sorry if I could find the second comment here. But have you guys heard about that? Like, the insulin suppression, the sort of opposite of, okay, What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I used to follow Dr. Robert Sivas religiously. An amazing man, so much knowledge. I've learned so much from him. But there's a few things that most of the other doctors out there disagree with him, and that this is one of those topics. They don't believe it's a thing. Talk to Dr. Ken Berry, Anthony Chafee. They don't agree with Rob Sivas on this topic, and a few other things that he says. I don't know because he is a doctor. I'm not. Um, I do know there's other variables. If a person is taking over-the-counter or prescription medicines, that affects blood glucose big time. There's always a blood glucose rise. If managing stress, and we all have different kinds of stresses. If you're not managing your stress and dealing with it, that absolutely raises your cortisol and your blood glucose. Those could be the factors. So I don't know if Robert Sivas is correct or not. I just know that a lot of people disagree with him on that. So I don't know. Something to think about for sure. But those other things I mentioned are things that we need to consider. It's not just the glucose your liver's making and the glucose we're ingesting. It's also, stress, and it could also be other medicines to consider that are raising it. For example, not to go into a long story, but I was atrial fibrillation, which is gone now thanks to Carnivore. But I had to take a beta blocker, and along with another medicine. And that beta blocker, one of the many side effects is it raises your blood glucose. And when I tested it on my Keto Mojo, my blood glucose was up constantly. It was well over 100 because I was on that pill. So with the help of my cardiologist, I very slowly weaned off of this medicine. I don't have AFib that much anymore. It's like 99% gone thanks to Carnivore. But that medicine raised my glucose. So I don't know if this person, we don't know all the details of their life with glucose and why theirs is too high.
Yeah, it's something I've been trying to deep dive into, and in the video I watched by him, he was reading and part of an email correspondence from himself and Ben Bickman, which I know is, and basically the argument was like, because I've always thought, and that was my theory, that I was never really fat adapted because I was eating too much protein, and that I had always heard that eating a lot of protein or a lot of protein in one sitting can spike your insulin, right? Because if it's you're not, especially if you're not fat adapted, right? Because if you're consuming that, it's being broken down into some glucose, then your insulin goes up. But he was saying that insulin's not triggered at all by protein consumption because it's the inhibition of gluconeogenesis, which is what would be or not upregulated, but instigated or whatever when you eat protein to break it down into amino acids and glucose, right? And so I'm like, well, am I wrong about that, or is that what they're disagreeing?
I think that could be true for some people. Like you said, the fat adapted people, not necessarily so. But people who are trying, they're in the stage of trying to become keto or fat adapted. Maybe gluconeogenesis is more prevalent, and it's causing that number to go up. I don't know.
Okay.
If we had him on here, he would explain it, but it's hard to understand.
Okay. Yeah, I need to learn a little bit more before I even
I do
think
too.
out loud, I think, but
well,
on that topic. Back to the point.
The problem is solved. Kenny has 4 children. So his stress is just especially if they're teenagers, that's what's going on.
That's funny. Okay. Here again, I think you've kind of answered this in the comments, but this is the one I'm always like excited about when I hear anyone say like, "Oh, my wrinkle filled in," or "My skin's tighter," or "I've lost weight and it's sort of like absorbing itself." Like, have any of you guys experienced this? I don't know that I have yet.
I answered this one in the chat for the person, and I forgot to mention, so I'll say it now. Fasting, long-term fasting, doing 3-day fasts. That what is it called when you have when your dead skin cells get
Autophagy.
cleaned up. Autophagy. That autophagy is what is causing your skin to look better and to tighten up. So not just eating this way, but fasting will help it. And it takes a lot of time, just like you said, Nia. We took our whole lives to get this way. We can't expect results overnight. So put the time, the effort in, and be consistent, and it works. A lot of people say their skin tightens up.
How often? Because like I'm getting loose skin. I was over 300 pounds, so I'm getting
Wow.
loose skin pretty bad now. And so, how often do you recommend, or do you see people fast in that state for longer periods?
I honestly don't know. It's up to the individual. I mean, listen to Jason Fung. He's the guy about fasting, and it does wonders if you're using it for that purpose, uh, and not just intermittent fasting, which we all do. From dinner to the first meal the next day, but longer term fasts. So try them and spread them out maybe once every month or every couple of months. Do a long-term fast and see
Yeah.
what it does. Look and take pictures, take before and after pictures,
Right.
and see if you can see. I hear wonderful results from people, but I don't have a timeline. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what to tell you there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know Laura Spath talks about this on her channel, and I know ultimately she ended up getting the skin removal surgery, but I know I think she's like talked about the improvements that she did have, or how it did help as she went along. Too, that's just what popped into my head.
Yeah, I've also heard that some people that have a lot of weight to lose and they have a lot of loose skin, there's just so much your body will do, depending on your age, that you might have to have some surgery to take it the rest of the way if you have that much.
Yeah, I'm still a fan of fasting. I just think too, from a gut health perspective, I just like I can just see it. You know what I mean? Like because today I think I skipped breakfast. I've been eating breakfast. I've been kind of eating 2 meals again, and then today I was like, I'm just not hungry, and I've been super busy all day, going since 5 a.m. And it's like, um, by like 1:30, I was like, oh, I should probably eat, and like that's the feeling I want, where I'm like, oh yeah, it's been over 24 hours or something. I should probably have a meal, and it's like, okay, then whereas sometimes if I wait too long or fast too long, then I'm like really, really, really hungry. And then I kind of just like, rah, shovel everything in and then too fast. And then I'm like, ugh, for 2 days, And so it's weird, but it's like, it's tricky to kind of find that perfect spot. But I feel like the last couple of days, I'm like, yeah, this is how I need to do it. But the problem is, it's not the same time every day when I eat, right? Or it's the same stuff going on. So I'm like, I just need like a tracker that tells me, I don't know. I guess that's intuition, right? That's your tracker when to eat. Okay. JT, which counter do you use for counting your days on carnivore?
Let's go, Vicky. I use it's called Day Counter, and here, let me. It's that little green one there. You see that? It says Day Counter. It's got a little green number 12 on it. It's free. It works great. And you put in there a date, and you can either count up, which is what it's doing right now, or you can count down to Halloween or Christmas or something. So it's a fun little app. But it's called Day Counter. It's got a little green 12, and it's free. So download it, carnivores. Let's go.
Okay, Deborah has a question. Newbie, I need advice. Been feeling good. Am I eating too much? 2 burger patties with cheese and 3 eggs. Second meal, drinking spring water 4 liters. Have heel spur pain yet? Does that mean you're having that for 2 meals? Second meal? Or is that just one meal a day?
I think the eggs are the second meal.
Oh, and 3 eggs second meal. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
That doesn't seem like too much to me. I eat a lot more than that. I think it's
No.
probably individual.
We don't know how big the person is. I
Yeah.
mean, we need more details. Just eat, try to eat until it doesn't taste good anymore, and then stop. And try to, as best you can, as you progress, to sense your signals. I don't want any more, or I'm really hungry. You know, and don't think, oh, it's too much food. If you're still hungry, eat it. Your body wants it.
And will
We tend to overthink it. We're like, oh, I have this much water and this much food. And, you know, animals in the wild don't measure or weigh or track. They just eat when they're hungry and they stop when they're full. And we're an animal. You know, we need to stop overthinking everything.
And will eating carnivore like dissolve that bone spur? Like, I don't know. What happens with a bone spur?
That's a Dr. Berry question. I don't know what causes that or what can get rid of that.
Is it calcium? It might be a calcium, because people, you can get that in any joint, really. And I've heard those are super painful. I've never had a heel spur, but eesh, I can only imagine. So hopefully it will resolve. Yeah, I go back and forth. Some days I eat a lot, and then other days I'm like, yeah, 2 burgers and a couple egg yolks is all I want. And then I'll fast for 24 hours, and then I'll eat 3 meals on the next day, and it's like, I don't know, it's just it changes a lot for me. But I'll have, like, a couple weeks where I'm like, I feel like doing 1 meal a day, and then I eat more, and then I eat less, and so yep. Patty says, "Hi, I'm 69 and walk 3 to 4 days a week. Have been carnivore 3 months. When can I start weight training and how many days a week? I'm in excellent health," says the doc. Nice. Whoops. Um, well, I will throw out kind of the general answer that I hear typically is whenever you get that energy where you feel like, I need to burn this, I need to go to the gym, I really want to. And when you really feel like you've got the energy for it, I would say start with, if you're 69 and you're walking, I would say personally to start with body weight training, like functional training, and I wouldn't go straight to weight bearing exercise until you've kind of nailed down some good body weight training. Just because you may not know what even compensations you might be having or what imbalances you might have, muscularly or skeletal wise. And so sometimes going to like those machines in the gym or doing like certain types of exercise, repeating certain things, especially adding weight too soon, can actually make things like that, worse. And so, shameless plug, you can check out the 2 classes on my channel now. My goal is to post 1 a week. I still need to film one before tomorrow. I don't think it's going to happen this week because I still have a bunch of stuff to do before I leave. But, I've always been a huge fan of yoga, a huge fan of like Pilates, that type of stuff, just to, again, just train the whole body, open everything up, get everything lined up properly so that you can function well in your everyday activities, and then progress to loaded resistance training once you feel like that baseline is there. So that would be my advice. Anybody else?
I have a friend that is a yogi person, and so she's taught us yoga twice, me and my daughter, and it is you get done, you're like, we didn't do anything, and then you are sore and you can't believe how you feel, and it just feels so amazing. But it's great, and it's just slow, and you're not in danger of hurting yourself until you try and balance by leaning over too far. But I think yoga is a blast. I have a lot of fun doing it.
And I agree with everything you said. And Neah, you hit the nail right on the head with that. Just listen to your body. You're already walking, go in it slowly. Eventually you can add some weights, but not right away. You don't want to hurt yourself. But if you feel like it, do it. I mean, every time we move our muscles and exercise the different muscles in our body, we're sending signals to those muscles that they are important, and then they will respond appropriately. They will maintain, they will grow. Your muscles will get more dense. Your bones will become more dense as well, and you'll lose fat.
Agreed. And it's good for your mind. I just like stretching, restore like it's such a way to breathe and just like release tension and release pent up emotions. That's the class I'm about to film is hip openers, really focusing on hip openers because we hold a lot of junk, like not just structurally tight. Everyone's hips are tight, but it's like there's a lot of emotional pain and trauma stored in the hip area too. And that's another thing on this journey, right, to look into is learning how to process our emotions differently, right? Because a lot of us went to food before, went to alcohol before, went to these other things to cope with life or to cope with what we wanted to feel more or didn't want to feel more of. And so this has always been my favorite way to try to find a way to do that that's actually healthy and productive. And so just another side benefit in my opinion. We have a question from Alan. There are a mix of ideas when it comes to cutting from 15% body fat. Some say less protein and some less fat. What say you? What do y'all think? I mean, as a female, I don't think that would be a healthy range for the vast majority of ladies. I think what's the healthy range of for men? It's like what, 6 to or the lowest percentage is like 6% that you can still like maintain adequate hormone status or whatever. And for ladies, I think it's like what 18% or something like that. If I remember right.
Let's see here.
Yeah, somebody Google it. But I think there again, like getting to that sort of fitness model sort of status. I think it's a combination of number one, genetics. Some people just are more genetically predisposed to whatever your body type is to getting super lean. But it would, the leaner you get, the more like if you think about it again, sort of primally or ancestrally, it's like getting very lean is not necessarily what your body wants, right? It wants to have a little bit of that reserve there in case you don't kill anything for 2 weeks and you've got to still function. And so, I mean, there again, I don't think that. Yeah, anyone look it up? 15% is not unhealthy for men, right? What's the lowest? Like 6?
6%.
That so, it's just going to take a combination. Like you might have to start tracking a lot more than you're used to potentially to see like, okay, if I eat less protein and more fat, these number of grams per day for 2 weeks, what happens, and then try the other way and see. And then you're going to have to be in a deficit at some point, an energy deficit to drain more of that stored body, whatever is on your body. So, yeah, if that's your goal to get to a certain body fat percentage, then yeah, you'll just have to track and see what moves the scale, and that combination of your genetics, what you do in the gym, and your macros and your meal windows would all be levers, I think, that you could play with. Anybody else? Yeah. Okay. What else we got? Any other questions you guys see that sometimes I get like dizzy looking in here. I'm like, I go up and then I go up too far and then I'm like, where was I? I don't know.
Somebody was asking
cues in front of them.
a question about alcohol. but I
Oh,
don't
okay.
uh, up higher.
Papa Carnivore mentioned something about alcohol.
So
Yeah,
the
it was
question was
up high.
probably right before that.
Let me see where that is. I have to go up there.
Okay, I'm at like 643.
Where did that go?
If it was you, drop it again in the,
Yeah.
because I'm not seeing it.
Well, while we're
Well, I mean, we can
waiting,
talk about alcohol. I
let's
mean,
talk about alcohol. Exactly.
yeah. Go ahead.
It's
Alcohol
7:38.
is
Carnival for life. 7:38.
738.
alcohol is a toxin. We get no nutrition from alcohol at all. There's no reason to drink it other than to get the drunk feeling, the little tipsy feeling. And our liver sees it as a toxin and has to process it. And while it's processing the toxin, it's taking away the bandwidth from all the other 200 jobs that your liver has to perform. The liver, I just did a video on liver. The liver's just freaking amazing and all the things it does for us. And when we drink a lot of alcohol or we drink it consistently, a lot of people drink it every day, you're taking away that bandwidth energy, that space for it to do all those other jobs efficiently. So getting off the alcohol and then the high fructose corn syrup and fructose, sugar is 50% fructose. That the liver has to process that almost in a similar way. I think that's what he was referring to. So I guess some people can have one little drink every other day, but I know many people, they drink 2 or 3 a day. That's too much. The body can't handle it. What do you guys think? Uh-oh.
No, Neah was like pointing
I
at
said
herself.
that was me,
Was you?
and even on,
Easy.
yeah, not anymore. No, not anymore. But yeah, and I would say, and again, I've talked about this a lot on my channel. So if you haven't seen my update videos or any of that, like I talk about it all the time because I think it's something that should be talked about more because it's such a part of our culture. And again, I'm not anti-alcohol. I'm not saying nobody can ever have a drink or no one can ever have a blueberry or nobody can ever have, anything. I just think that, but I agree. I think it is a toxin and I think we should understand it from that perspective because that, just like we do with the garbage food or the seed oils, it's like once you reframe that item as like this is what it actually is and this is what it actually does to my body and this is how it's preventing me from healing or getting to my goal, it becomes a lot easier to not drink it or not to consume it, right? Not to say that, you know, when I walk through the wine aisle to get my bottles of club soda, because they're like $1 every time, unless when you go in the water aisle, they're like only the fancy stuff. You got to go to the mixer section to get the cheap club soda. Um, I mean, honestly, it doesn't tempt me anymore. And it's so weird because, like, I relied on that stuff every day, like you guys are talking about, for like a decade. You know, I was a bartender for a decade and worked in restaurants for, 12, 15 years. Like, that was my life, and that's what everybody did. And so part of it's your environment, because it's very hard to change if you're around people that are consistently doing the thing that you're trying to change. And then from a nutrition standpoint, the longer you do this diet, I think there's tons of people that talk about how they just lose their craving for it. And I think it has to do with being fat adapted because, read the book Brain Energy by Chris Palmer if you haven't yet. Carnivore for Life, because he talks about alcohol and marijuana in that book and about what they actually do to your brain and how, like, we have receptors for all this stuff, right? All these different drugs, not just those two. But they mimic other functions that are natural functions, right? And so that's really inspiring too, right? Because ketones actually, and Dr. Palmer said this in an interview, I think with Thomas DeLauer is maybe the first one I saw, but other people too, or no, it was Jordan Peterson, I think, the first time I heard him say this, where you can actually give people who are struggling to quit alcohol like an exogenous ketone beverage, and they can, like, he said one guy did this and he took that to the bar and he drank that while his friends were drinking alcohol. And it can almost mimic that same sort of high that you get from drinking, like a high ketone status. And I have found that to be true. And I've measured my ketone. When I'm in like 2.5, 3.0 ketones, like I don't feel drunk in the same way. It's not like I feel like less things. It's like I just feel almost like a high, and it's a positive feeling and it's almost like similar, it's energy because my brain was literally running, I think, on acetate, which is one of the breakdown products of alcohol, like you were saying, in the liver that the brain can use. So like literally people who say that they function better on alcohol, like they're not lying because their brain is using that and it can rely on that. And that's hard to break, just like it's hard to break the glucose, the sugar addiction and have your body switch into burning ketones. It's like, it's the same thing with alcohol. And so I highly recommend that book because it'll break all this down. It's kind of dense, but or watch some of his interviews where he talks about this because I think it's so powerful. So the nutrition change is huge. And the longer you do this, that's been my experience, I don't crave it at all anymore. And I can, like I said, walk down and grab my 5 for 5 club sodas through the vodka aisle, which I used to binge drink vodka and wine, pretty much every night for a long, long, long time. And now it's like, I don't even see it. And so if, if that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. So nutrition matters, understanding what is happening in your body matters, and your goals matter, And there again, I'm not saying no one should ever have a drink ever again, but it's within that context. Same thing with a cheat meal. It's like, hey, if you want to go on a vacation and have pizza or something, like fine. But as long as okay, this is my cutoff point and this is what's actually, it's not helping me in any way. It's actually hurting me, but I'm going to choose to do it this one time and then I'm going to go back. You know what I mean? So those are my thoughts. Sorry, I went off on a rant. Everyone else?
I also think sorry, I'm not going to be as scientific as you guys are, but I think one thing that could be helpful is trying to replace that behavior with something else. So for me, I was addicted to diet soda for a long time and I switched to carbonated water and that helped me. So if there's something that you can find that's equally as satisfying, maybe not in that moment, but like that you can build a healthy habit around, I think that can help.
I agree. Dr. Robert Sivas, this is where he comes in and shines because as known as the carb addiction doc, he talks about addiction to sugar, to alcohol, to all these things. And one of the main facts that he talks about is removal and replacement. When you remove something, whether it's cigarette smoking or alcohol or sugar and carbs, there's a gaping hole that's left in your life. It's like a death in the family. You mourn it, you miss it, you get depressed over it, and then you go back to it. So you have to put something in its place that's neutral or positive, that's not negative, and work with that and ease into that. That's how I quit coffee that way, actually. I very slowly eased off of it and I replaced it with hot water with butter. So I still had the mug. It was hot. I still did the ritual, the motion, the action, and I very slowly transitioned to just having a glass of water in the morning. But if I just stopped drinking coffee, and I know I was going to get the caffeine headache, but you still miss the behaviors associated with that addiction, the behaviors associated with the alcohol or the smoking or the drinking or the carbs. So replacement is huge. It's a vital thing. I mean, you have to replace them with, and there's a whole list of tools that you could put in that toolbox that are emotional management tools, like doing a puzzle, going for a run, talking to a friend. You can replace a bad addiction with an activity as well. A lot of stuff I learned from that guy. I disagree with him on some things, but I love him for a lot of the other things.
Yeah, I started doing self-hypnosis and one of these years, I'm going to make a video about it. I keep saying it, but because hypnosis is not what most people think it is, and I've gotten some comments. It's like, oh, that's, crazy stuff. It's like, it's not, you don't lose control of your mind. You're not under someone else's control. You're not in some like, super crazy la la land. It's like we're all in hypnosis every day. Like if you drive a car and you're driving a very familiar route and you kind of like space out, and you're like, "Oh, I'm home, but I don't really remember driving." It's like you were in a hypnotic trance. Like that is just a normal, it's alpha brainwave state. Um and so we're in beta most of the day, right? When our conscious awareness, we're what we're doing right now. But when you drift into, drop down into alpha, that's and then you have uh delta and theta, which are like the lower two when you're asleep, and but your ears are always on, you know what I mean? So you can always hear things. And so it's a way to uh, tap into that alpha brainwave state so you're relaxed. And that's what I couldn't do. I couldn't relax without alcohol. And so I realized that. Or, I mean, I remember writing in my journal years ago that I can't feel unless I drink, like happy or, like, so I knew this about myself for a long time, but I just struggled and struggled to, make a permanent change about it. Um, but anyway, that really helped because it's like that taught me how to relax. And so I've been listening to self hypnosis tracks like every single night pretty much since I started carnivore again. So like 10 months. And that was a huge key for this as well, because it's a replacement for relaxation, and it's subconscious reprogramming. And so you can go in and you can rewire these negative thought patterns and, why can't I do this? Or why don't I have the ability to feel this or that, right? And you can get specific scripts for specific things that you want to work on. And so I found that, in combination with all these other things, to be like, that's how I am.
Is that on an app, or is that like things you find on YouTube?
I found on YouTube the I've listened to a lot of them, and there's tons. There's so many that aren't necessarily called hypnosis, but they're, you know, brainwave, anything with like binaural beats, anything with like a lot of the times they're under the sleep meditation titles and things like that. But they're all similar. But what I like about hypnosis, and so I do Steve G. Jones is the hypnotist, and he's been on a couple TV shows. He's kind of like a famous celebrity hypnotherapist, but he has some free tracks on YouTube, and then his website has a bunch, like dozens and dozens and dozens of different ones. And so you can go in, like, there's stop smoking, there's one for carbs, there's like, all these different things with just different scripts in them. And so that's what you're programming in. Once you go through the visualization, you relax. I usually fall asleep, but that's okay. Like, and it just teaches you a new way to think about whatever the topic is. And so I have like probably 10, that I rotate between now, 10 different ones, depending on how I'm feeling, whatever I'm struggling with. And so, so again, like, not that specifically is for everybody, but I find the format to be something that works really well. But yeah, there's a lot of free stuff. I think we have a couple more questions I saw pop up. Is everybody good on time, or does anyone need to leave right now? Okay. We won't go too far over, but Alan says, have any of you dove into understanding quantum biology, improving mitochondrial health, how carnivore is low deuterium? I think you can tell by the way I struggled with that last word that I haven't delved into that very far. But I have dipped my toes into the quantum biology stuff for sure. What about y'all?
I listened to the she used to be the carnivore yogi. You already said her name tonight. I can never remember it. What is her name? Sarah Kleiner. I listened to her, but a lot of that stuff is kind of over my head, and it's also kind of scary. So I'm not sure that I want to like go hundreds of hours into figuring it out. It's like, for me, carnivore is simple. I understand it. I can figure it out. And some of that other stuff is just like, wow, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm ready for that level of, like, I have to eat low deuterium water all the time. It feels like everything on there is going to cost you money. You're going to have to buy something. You're going to have to hire an expert to come to your house and fix things. And it's almost like, I just don't have the energy. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about that stuff. There's a lot there, though. I mean, I love it.
DC Learning to Live. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's a great guy I talked to in Australia. He talks about deuterium all the time. So if you go to his channel, he has videos on deuterium. I don't know what the heck it is either. It has to do with hydrogen. You know, before I did all of this, I didn't know what an oxalate was, right? And I didn't know what a lot of terms and phrases were. So I'll probably add this to my repertoire of knowledge, deuterium. And I just think if we stick with carnivore and eat as cleanly as possible to the best of our ability to what we can afford, we're doing well. All right, we're not overthinking it. If you want to dive deeper into the mitochondrial health and all these things, there's so much we can learn about, and you can fine tune our diets with that, but we're doing so much better already. So absolutely learn as much as you can, but you know, don't feel overwhelmed. You can't learn it all. There's so much to know.
That reminds me, I've had a thought lately about that, is, you know, people who want to like extend their lives and like live forever. And I just feel like, you know, we live in a fallen world. This is not the eternal realm. I just feel like we're putting too much energy into trying to live forever and be perfect in this life. I don't think this isn't the place for that. I'm just going to let some of that go and deal with what I can deal with, so that I'm not stressing myself out to the point where I can't even deal with what I have to deal with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And sort of on that flip side of the coin thing again, it's like I get real obsessed and I'm super fascinated with all this stuff. And so on the one hand, yeah, I just listened to the thing I brought up earlier with Dr. Hoffman, and I was like, "Oh, no, let me go down this rabbit hole," you know? But like you're saying too, then there's times when I'm like, "Look, I just have to live and enjoy the moment too and not get so just like hypochondriac about everything sometimes because it can mess with you." So, but I find, just to kind of sum up the bit that I have learned about this, is like it all ties back into ancestral principles. It ties back into like bare feet on the ground, you know, being in the sunlight, not looking at screens the first thing or the last, you know, in the morning or the last thing before you go to bed. Like the technological modern world that we live in is not what our genes are adapted to. It's not what our bodies expect. And so that is creating a lot of dysfunction that's affecting people in multi-system, you know, dimensional ways essentially. And so I think a lot of this stuff is actually, I don't want to say basic, but it's like when I hear somebody like go through this really complex thing and then it's like, so what you're telling me is I need to look at the sun at, you know, when it's rising, you know, or look at that east facing light in the morning. It's like, oh, okay. But that's what's all, you know, all the photoreceptors in your eyes and then all the spillover from everything. It's like, oh, it's because my body is designed to operate that way and I'm not doing that. So it's actually a simple solution, but it's like, but someone had to go through that whole, you know, of like figuring that out. And I think that's so fascinating that that's what's happening right now. It's like we're rediscovering like what is a proper human diet. And I think somebody who brings this up, who's like, was it Adrian? Somebody said this recently, who was like, think about our ancestors looking down on us right now, like laughing, like just cracking up, being like, oh, you need to be told that you need to walk barefoot on the ground. Like what's wrong with you guys? You know? And so I think, you know, part of it's just that. But
I think they'd also think it was funny that we go to the store to buy dirt.
yeah, you
to
know,
put in our yard.
it's not the
I look at everybody looking at their phones, you know, walking on the street everywhere, the kids. We didn't have this not that long ago. And there's kids that they're getting a bone spur type thing in the back of their neck, these kids, because they're looking down so much, some little growth, all the microplastics we have. There's so much that's in our environment today because of our modern technology. that it's affecting our health. It really is. And all the messages, put sunscreen on. I saw it on TV, not because it's spring and the sun, and they're giving you summer messages. You must slather on sunscreen. All these warnings. Stay out of the sun. We're getting these messages about cholesterol and about the sun that are incorrect. About eggs. Don't eat too many eggs, right? So people are hearing the wrong messages, the incorrect messages. And it's attributing to worse health. So we have to fight that too.
Agreed. Okay, I'm going to pop these last two up, and then we're going to wrap it up for today. So, oh, wait. I got all messed up. Okay, Alan says, easier question. How do you feel when you find out you changed someone's life by convincing them to do carnivore? I don't know. I haven't convinced anyone yet to fully do it for long enough. Maybe.
I have one friend that has started, but feels like she's failing at it. And I keep trying to tell her, no, you're doing great. Like you're like 90% better than where you were. It's great. But she's got this mindset like she has to do 100% or 110%. And so I'm just trying to encourage her to be happy with the progress that she's making. But it's really exciting that there's at least one human being in the world that is doing something good, making a good choice because I got on YouTube. So it's pretty exciting.
I wouldn't say I've gotten anybody to go carnivore, but I've gotten some people to start dropping what they're eating. And some of my family members have gone keto, and I think it's great. I think it's, especially for my family, it's very important to me. I'm not going to force anybody to go on. I can't do that, but just encouraging them and then actually seeing them make changes is really important to me. So I think it's exciting, like Cami said, and then it's relieving in some sense because you're kind of worried about those people before and kind of the path that they were going down. So I think it's exciting. It's worthwhile, worth all the conversations, even if they're awkward. I think it's great.
Yeah, my mother, she's went on keto ever since the Montello meetup that we did in Wisconsin here, and ever since then she's lost at least 14 pounds. Last time I talked to her, it might be more now. She's off her inhaler and she doesn't use her CPAP machine no more at night.
Wow.
So and that's my mama, you guys. You know what I'm saying? You only get one mom, like I love her and I want to see her do good, and I want to see her hang out with this little nugget head back here. So it's amazing, keto and carnivore, it's the way to go, guys.
I agree. I get comments from my YouTube videos, and some people every once in a while they thank me, said I did what you said and I saw this result. Thank you so much. And I get a little dopamine hit. It's a nice feeling, and it's the reason I do it, because people have helped me. I watch other people's YouTube videos. I made changes to my life, and my life is so greatly improved. So that's why I do my YouTube channel, because I'm kind of paying it forward. I'm not getting paid for any of this. I'm not monetized, and it feels good. I sleep well because I feel like maybe somebody else is they're getting some benefits like I got benefits.
I agree. That's all I ever want is for like all my loved ones to be on this diet, I'm like, maybe someday. I mean, like Ben eats, he eats a lot of meat. He's not full carnivore, but I can say like, okay, I can convince him to buy a lot less of the snacky stuff, maybe that he used to. So like definitely improvements there. But yeah, I mean, obviously, when you feel so much better, you're like, I want everyone to feel like this, right? So
yeah, I convinced her to go
keep on.
and it does feel good. It does feel good.
Okay, last question from Christy. I'm having leg cramps every day. I've tried everything to fix this problem. Any advice you can add, because I'm having foot surgery in a couple of weeks? Eesh.
Are they like Charlie horses? I wonder what kind of leg cramps, because there's different
Yeah.
kinds. I
And
don't
by
know.
everything, do you mean magnesium, different amounts, different forms, different times of day?
That's where I was going to
Well,
go,
and I think you've
electrolytes.
mentioned,
Yeah.
have you, some people said potassium actually helped with their cramping too. I always hear like magnesium, 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 but, um, you know, they all balance themselves out. I wouldn't call it leg cramps, but I will feel, and this is how I knew it was time to add exercise back in. Kind of going back to that other question. It's like I felt like like almost like what I would perceive as restless legs, but I don't think it really was, but it's like I just felt like itchy. It's like my muscles itched. It's like they wanted to move. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have this crazy spike of energy where I was like, I want to go lift weights and run miles, but I just felt like stretching. You know what I mean? And I always just feel so much better after I stretch. And you know, so I don't know if that's pertaining to what you're going through, but sometimes it could be that. It could be like um something related to an activity that you're doing. You know, if you're sitting for a long time or standing for a long time in one position, you know, that's something that won't hurt is to do a little bit of uh, different style of movement, some stretching, and see if that helps at all. There again, electrolytes are obviously something to look at and adjust. But I wish I knew exactly what you tried. And forgive me if I missed it under here because I get lost in here. Did anyone see it?
Using my shaker, my vibration plate helps my muscles when I get just kind of like muscly, restless leg kind of pain and the cramping. The shaker plate helps me a lot. I like that.
Or I use a foam roller. I have this foam roller. This is like
I have that. I have one of those too. I know what you're going to
this
get.
one's
Yeah.
like hard. It's not plastic. It's like I don't know. It squishes, but it's like it's hard. So you can like really roll on this thing and get some intensity. And I find that always makes me feel better too. So hopefully those are maybe some things that you haven't tried. Do you have the same one that Bill has, Cami? Like the ones that he talks about? Different one?
No,
Okay.
no, I got a $40 one off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. Drove out
Oh,
into
cool.
the country to pick it up.
Nice. Okay. Well, I want to be somewhat respectful of everyone's time, even though I've held you captive for 20 extra minutes tonight. But anybody have final thoughts or anything you want to say before? I know we had some questions come in late, so I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody's, but we did run a little after the time. But anyone else have anything to say before we wrap up?
If you're stalled on your weight, don't give up. I was there for at least 4 months. Don't give up. Don't give up. And I even said if I didn't lose another pound from there, I would still stay on the diet because I feel so good. So just keep it in there if you're getting frustrated with the weight loss stall. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and I think too, like kind of going off of that, you got to remember where you came from. Like I think sometimes you feel so good, you forget how your old life was, how you feel, and then it's just not worth it. So I agree. You gotta stick to it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate your time tonight and everybody in the chat. I'll be streaming live Sunday. I'm planning to do the same time from Hack Your Health. So if anybody is there, any of y'all are there and you want to, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a way to like get some of us together and stream if anybody wants to. I don't know. But it may be me by myself or it may be me and some surprise guests if depending on how everything goes. But other than that, I'm behind on editing, so I don't know what's coming out for me in the next week. But we'll definitely do this again next Thursday. We'll have a regular, another specific topic to go off of. But if you're liked this open Q&A format, let me know in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, let me know too if you'd like to see this, once a month or something like that. We can throw these in here too. That's a little bit more open to different questions and topics. So, okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
See you later.
Rick. See you, Rick.